Welcome back to When Bad Things Happen to Good People, a podcast about censorship and the arts. My name is Todd Sullivan. Joining me as always is my good friend Peter Rahman.
Hello, hello.
And today we are following up our look at The Chocolate War by Robert Cormier. Or Robert Cormier, we're not sure.
Yeah.
We haven't decided yet.
He hasn't reached out to us.
He hasn't reached out. Is he? I think he may have.
He may have passed.
He may have passed. I did notice, it looks like you have the same copy of the book as mine. That
There's
there is
a
little study guide at the back and a little bit about, I love that there at the very end, there's this bit.
Who is this Robert Cormier anyway?
No, I was looking at the In His Own Words.
Oh, okay.
Where it's like, the following introduction to The Chocolate War was written by Robert Cormier in 1997.
Right, yeah.
And my brain was like, well, if this was an introduction, why didn't you put it at the beginning?
Yeah.
Like, why did you put the introduction at the end and then say, this introduction was
Right.
originally for the 1997 edition, which I guess this one must be a later edition than that. But I did glance through this. I didn't read it, but I did glance through this, and I caught the bit that this book was inspired by his son coming to him with a chocolate sale that was going on at his school. And the son was like, I want to do this. And his dad was like, all right.
Yeah.
But then that immediately got him thinking, what if that hadn't gone quite as smoothly for him?
Yeah.
And from there evolved
The Chocolate War.
the rest of the book.
Yeah.
And without getting into detail about the end, hey, questions for the discussion.
Yeah. I haven't looked at any of this stuff in the back, but
Maybe we should use the questions for discussion for our wrap-up episode, eh?
Yeah.
Just like we're part of a book club or something.
I got a question for you though, Tom.
Yeah.
Did you ever do any chocolate sales when you were in school? Because I remember we did have that when I was in middle school.
I think so.
Yeah.
I can't say 100% sure that it was chocolate sales, but I know that I had to sell something. And it was probably chocolate almonds. I know that was a big go-to.
We did chocolate almonds.
Yeah.
So not chocolate. And these ones seem like they're like individual chocolates as well.
It feels like they're selling sort of pot of gold kind of chocolate kind of thing.
But I remember getting like the cardboard box, right?
Which had like
your
a stack of
20
10 or
whatever, and you had to like go sell the whole box.
Yeah.
And when that was sold, then you bring the money in.
Yeah.
And I remember doing that a few years ago.
I really struggled with the door-to-door thing. I was a very shy kid.
Oh man, we just, you just kind of hit up your family, right?
Well, that was the thing, is I think my dad brought them to work, or my mom brought them to work and pawned them off on people there.
Oh, for sure.
But like very little sales done by me personally.
Yeah, I think if you just kind of have the box at home and anyone in your family has a sweet tooth, like half are going to get like slowly purchased.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but that's how I can recognize things too. And this probably would have been from when I was older, like borrowing the money. Like in the first half of the book, there's a lot more of like kids like, I need to buy this thing. I'm going to steal $5 from it because, I'm 13 and I need a pack of cigarettes, and then I'll sneak my allowance money.
Or I need to
in there.
take a girl out so I can get
so I might
some side boob touching.
Hide her boob through her sweater.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we covered the first half of this book up to chapter 19 last episode. If you haven't listened to that, you're going to be missing a lot of details about this book if you just are joining us now. But that's
fine.
That's your choice.
Wherever you want to jump in, we'll keep
your
talking.
life as you want to. Chapter 20.
So, some tensions starting to appear.
Yeah, someone's been given a new assignment. There's a new prank. There's these assignments that are given out by the group called the Vigils. The Vigils are sort of like the organized bullies, or the organized sort of like student bullies. What's the word I'm looking for? It's
like
not quite
a secret
bullies.
society.
Yeah, kind of a secret society that kind of runs.
They're
the school.
heavy-handed.
But they can be heavy-handed. Yeah. They don't. Archie is sort of the vice president, and he prefers more psychological approaches to controlling the students.
Which the whole assignment thing kind of really does encapsulate that kind of control, right?
And in this case, the prank is that anytime Brother Jacques uses the word environment, all of the kids are instructed to sort of get up and bounce around and do a weird little jig.
Which I like this. I mean, this is a decent prank.
It's pretty harmless.
It shouldn't harm anyone.
Yeah.
And like really the fact that this man of the cloth is disturbed that his students are getting up and dancing, like, come on, brother.
Yeah. But as this day goes on, And when the chapter starts, it's implied, or it's sort of explained that, is it Obi? I'm trying to check my notes. It is Obi. Was sort of told that if Jacques,
he's got to prompt.
If Jacques doesn't use the word environment, to prompt him to try to get it out, but it seems like he hasn't had to yet.
Yeah,
and then it's actually coming up quite a lot, to the point that Obi is feeling like he's getting kind of exhausted.
Yeah,
from all the times he has to get up and
I think
do
it's like
now.
later in the week, when all of a sudden they have to, in one class they're up and down like 6 or 7 times, and like everyone's just like, oh, we're just sweating and exhausted, and then they see
towards the end of the class, they see a little smirk.
Yeah, on Brother Jacques' face, and then Obi sees Archie out in the hall after, and is like, he tipped him off that.
Yeah, he comes to the conclusion that they tipped off Jacques, and so now it's been reversed, and the brother
he's saying
is
environment all the time
with the students. Yeah. So that's fun in a way, but again, it also shows the power that the vigils potentially have over both sides.
Yeah, the faculty as well as the student
they're
body.
In a position where they can push both factions sort of against each other.
Yeah. And really, I mean, it's Archie. Like, so Carter, who's the president of the vigils, he's a student athlete, he's into the football and boxing, and, when he has his way, it's straight to violence, and that's how he solves a problem.
Yeah.
Whereas Archie is conniving, right? He is looking on how to not only manipulate people right now, but also in the long run. The picture with Emil, that whole thing is about long-term leverage, right? So he is really the mastermind. And even from the start of the book, when we see him interacting with Brother Leon, it is him running the show. I mean, Brother Leon doesn't come to Carter to ask for the vigil's help, comes to Archie, right? So he is the one who is really spearheading, I think, a lot of the influence of this group by being able to manipulate not only individuals in terms of assignments, but the entire student body to kind of do what he wants when he wants it done. So they exert an immense amount of power over the whole school.
And I think another element of sort of like Archie's cunningness is the fact that he has allowed Carter to be the figurehead of the vigils, so that if anything were to ever happen, he's going to be probably the one that goes down.
He's in the line of fire first,
right?
Yeah.
Archie's the one who's like really pulling the strings, but he's protected himself a certain amount.
Yes.
Chapter 21. This is one of those chapters, and there's a few of these where we just get thrown random characters that we've never heard before.
Which, I mean, again, I haven't watched the movie, but I think this would play really well in terms of like a view of a school, right, from a film setting, where it's just like you just see a conversation of some students you haven't seen before talking about, oh yeah, hey, that kid Jerry, right? And you're like, who are these kids? I don't know, but they're obviously students at the school, and this is, a sample of the population, and this is kind of the sentiment of the hour or whatever, right? So I see how that plays. It's a little tough in a book where you're kind of used to trying to like learn the characters and like, oh, are these guys going to come back up?
That's the biggest question, right?
Do I need to remember or not? So yeah, that's kind of tricky, because we've already had a few of those chapters where we've been introduced to people and they haven't. Yeah. And then we've also had chapters where you're like, is this important? And then the guy appears 2 more times and you're like, oh, okay, I need to know who that is.
And one thing I did struggle with a little bit, because I did have a fairly big gap between reading the first half and reading this half, is that especially Emil, when Emil showed up in this half, I was like, do I know this guy? Is this a brand new character?
You forgot about the picture?
I did forget about the picture, and it was only when the picture part came up that I was like, okay, that's who he is. But when he first shows up and is just sort of taunting Jerry, but we'll get to that part. But like, I was initially like, who's this guy?
Who's this guy?
But yeah, chapter 21, we're introduced to Kevin Chartier, who has sold no chocolates despite visiting 7 houses. And he calls up his friend, Danny Arcangelo, and they both complain about where their sales are at, and how maybe Jerry Renault has the right idea to say screw
like,
all
maybe
this.
he's onto something.
Then we bounce over to Howie Anderson and Ricky Rondell, who decide they're just going to stop selling chocolates.
Yeah. So, we're getting this sense that there's maybe some momentum building around Jerry's hard stance, hard line. Whatever Jerry's
is it a protest?
Doing,
what do we call it?
He doesn't even know, so it's tough to put into words. But he's made a decision, and other people are starting to notice, and the sentiment is changing.
Yep,
which probably can't be good if you're in the vigils.
No. And we'll find out how bad it is shortly. And then we have Obi arranging to meet with Archie in the gym, where he explains to him that Renault is still refusing to sell the chocolates.
And Archie kind of doesn't really care
Yeah.
until Obi kind of points out to him that it's
tanking the rest of the chocolate sales as well.
And it's a mark on the vigils themselves, right? Because he is no longer doing their bidding, which is an issue. And so Archie kind of, I think, gets clues into the point there, and now they're going to do something about it.
Yeah, they want to bring Archie back into the vigils and give him a little talking to.
Yeah. Bring Jerry in. Archie wants to bring Jerry in.
Wait, what did I say?
Bring Archie in.
Archie wanted to bring Archie in, yeah.
Okay. That's right. Jerry, Archie, Janza.
God, so many names.
So many names.
Now we've got Brian Cochran over in chapter 22.
Yeah, our little treasurer guy.
Yeah. Who's noticing that the sales are really dropping.
Yeah, like the numbers look bad.
Yeah.
Like worse than the last year.
Yeah.
Which they only had.
And they only had 10,000 and they were cheaper.
Yeah.
So, and he brings this to Brother Leon's attention, and Leon concludes that there's an infection.
Yeah.
That's the word I think he uses. There's a disease, there's an infection that is spreading apathy through the students. And I don't think he says it explicitly, but it's pretty clear that he thinks.
I think he says Renault. It's
right.
Renault. Yeah.
And that something is going to need to be done about this.
Yeah. No, I think it's just he responds to Brian saying Renault has 0. And then he goes into his disease diatribe.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Chapter 23.
Yeah.
A conversation between the Goob and Jerry.
And the Goob is essentially Jerry's only friend.
Kind of,
really,
yeah.
Because he's not like he's really super popular for his stance here, right? So the Goob is worried about Jerry, and he's had his own issues ever since the Room 19 incident. That kind of hasn't been sitting well with him either.
Yeah, well, and the initial conversation between Goob and the Jerry here, Goob and the Jerry.
Goob and the Jerry.
The Goob.
Welcome to Drive Time with Goob and the Jerry. Wah, wah, wah.
Is that the Goob has decided he wants to quit football.
Yeah. But and really not because of anything more than his own conscience, essentially, which he can't really explain to Jerry. But
he's really messed up after what happened in Room 19, and how not so much the actions that he took, but how what happened in that classroom affected the teacher.
Yeah,
like this teacher is basically, as far as they know, he's on some kind of stress leave.
Yeah,
he hasn't been back in school, and
he's in rough shape.
He's in rough shape
from all accounts. Yeah,
and it seems to have had an impact on the Goob. And he just sort of doesn't want to have anything to do with like anything beyond the bare bones of what he has to do at school.
Yeah, I think he says something to the effect of like, I don't want to give any more to Trinity. Something like that.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, he's trying to pull back and just isolate himself from any further effect within that Trinity world, which is sad.
And at the end of this, he makes one more plea to Archie to just please just sell the chocolates, man. God damn it, to Jerry.
Yeah. And then Jerry's like, well, don't quit football.
Yeah.
So it kind of ends with a bit of an impasse there. Yeah.
They're both just trying to kind of get by as best they can, encouraging the other to maybe do something that they're just not comfortable with.
Yeah.
Chapter 24. Brother Leon gives Archie a phone call.
Yeah. This, I mean, because I didn't know at first, like you find out at the end where he hangs up the phone, all the conversations, between kind of like the faculty and the students have been in person at the school.
Kind of behind closed doors, like very unofficial.
And now this is like, a little bit more clandestine of like, now you've got phone calls at home.
Yeah.
Like, this is not even on school grounds anymore, kind of wheeling and dealing, right? So it's, again, when you start the chapter, you don't really realize that. But you kind of at the end go, okay, like this is kind of more secret communique, like not even at the school.
But it's also the way he opens it, which is "You're in trouble," is what he says to Archie.
Yeah.
And Archie's immediate response, well, it's not his response. His immediate thought is to say, "No, you're in trouble."
Yeah.
But Leon really lays the blame for the chocolate sales on Archie.
Mm-hmm.
The vigils in general, but really specifically on Archie.
Yeah.
Because Archie was the one who
pledged support.
Exactly.
But we do find out why Archie says you're in trouble. He has some inside
why Leon
information.
says you're in trouble.
No, but why Archie thinks that. Like,
oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, because Archie has had a little bit of intel from the one and only Brian Cochran.
Indeed.
Who has overheard a little bit of what Brother Leon may have gotten up to with this chocolate sale, which is maybe overextending himself a little bit.
Well, more importantly, overextending the school.
Yeah.
The school finances and spending money he maybe didn't have the authority to spend on these chocolates.
And this chocolate sale, it needs to come through or he is potentially hooped.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it sounds like from what Cochran had said, they need to sell $20,000 worth of chocolates in order to make back what has been lost.
Yeah.
So that's the minimum, and they're not there yet.
Yeah.
And I think they're more than halfway through.
Yeah,
sales.
and I think something about at this point, I can't remember the numbers, but like they have barely sold 5,000 or maybe under 5,000 boxes out of the 20,000, and they're kind of nearing the end of the sales period.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look great at this point.
And so at this point, Leon orders Archie to utilize the vigils to make sure that the chocolates get sold.
That's right.
And
he says that word.
He says the vigils.
An order.
And he says it's an
vigils
order.
out loud.
And so those are two things that hadn't really happened before. The vigils have this status where they're sort of unofficially acknowledged, but never officially.
Yeah, never spoken out loud, right? It's known, but it's plausible deniability from all parties.
And for that same reason, at no time would the school give an order to a vigils, an unofficial student group like that. And so both of those things have happened on this phone call, which kind of, turns the dial up on the seriousness of the situation significantly.
And it's not really mentioned, and I don't see Archie, I don't remember him thinking this, but the fact that Leon says the vigils out loud and says an order, like he is trying to put the pressure on Archie, but I think really that gives Archie more power in this scenario. Right. The fact that Leon is so desperate that he's going outside of the social norm around this and willing to risk, saying the name and, making an order and like really getting into bed with the vigils. So I think it gives Archie a little more power
in what he's able to.
Yeah. And we kind of see that, I think,
pursue.
At the end in terms of how things wrap up for Archie.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That Leon maybe realizes that after the fact that he's kind of given Archie a bit of too much power potentially, and his neck is now on the line.
Yeah. Chapter 25.
So this is the meeting.
Yeah, they summon Jerry to the vigils to question him, like what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of like to put the fear of God into him, kind of meeting,
for sure.
Right?
But initially, it is. I mean, granted, it is about fear because you're in there, you're standing at attention. There's all the vigils are surrounding you
in the stinky old gym room.
And Archie is just trying to be sort of the very sort of powerhouse verbal, playing games with you. Why aren't you selling the chocolates?
Yeah, and it's all cat and mouse, which Carter doesn't like.
No. And Jerry is not really revealing much. He's like, it's a free country, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Archie's like, well,
that's not
come on, give us more than that.
Yeah.
And then Jerry again doesn't offer very much. He's like, well, the chocolate sales are optional, aren't they?
Yeah.
Finally, they just tell him so the intent is to tell him. The intent is to give him another assignment. Your old assignment was to not sell them. And now your new assignment is to sell them. That is your job.
Yeah, and this is the first time since the initial assignment that they've had Jerry back in.
Yeah.
So him saying no even after the assignment ended and continuing to say no to the chocolate sales hasn't kind of really, it's been in a no man's land. Now at this point, he's been in to see the vigils. They've given him a new order to sell the chocolate. So now, after this, if he continues to, now he's like actually going to be going up against the vigils.
Yeah. But the interesting thing that plays out here that Obi notices is that in the way he's sort of explaining it, Archie says, look, all we're asking you to do is sell the chocolates. Mm-hmm. And Obi realizes that by using the word ask, he's actually lost some of his power.
Yeah.
and realizes that Jerry isn't going to do it.
Yeah.
That just because like and whether or not, had it been a more proper order, you still don't know whether he would have done it. But the fact that it came as a request.
Yeah, and not a command.
And Obi begins to think like this is going to take down Archie.
Yeah. Which is a secret hope of Obi's.
Yeah.
As much as he admires how Archie can operate, he hates him and thinks he's a bastard. So Obi's a weird character in the sense that, I mean, he's quite a supportive character to Archie in one sense, but secretly hates him.
Yeah.
And Archie knows this and revels in it. It's a weird kind of relationship.
I think it's a pretty, I don't want to say common, but I think that's not an uncommon dynamic among those sorts of bully types.
Yeah.
You have someone who's the like kind of wannabe,
the lackey,
yeah, that they enjoy the power that comes from being an associate of the bully.
They get the trickle down effect.
Yeah.
But
they also don't really like the guy because he is a jackass.
Yeah.
Chapter 26. One thing we haven't really talked about is this character of Ellen Barrett.
Yeah.
Who's come up a few times. She's this girl that Jerry is spotted at the
bus stop or on the bus?
I think it's at the bus stop.
Yeah.
They mentioned that she smiled at him a couple of times, and once he got up close enough to her that he could see her name on her books.
Yeah.
So that's how he knows her name is Ellen Barrett.
Jerry's a bit of a PI here.
He's a bit of a PI.
He's
got some detective skills. He even went to the phone book and looked up the fact that there were 5 Barretts in the phone book and thought maybe one day he'll phone her.
Yeah, if he's got some time on his hands, he made a plan to call them all.
Exactly, until he finds Ellen. And this is the day he decides to do that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of implied that he is kind of powered by the feeling of denying the orders from the vigils.
Yes. Yeah. So he's now said no to the chocolate sales after.
Yes, right. That's right.
Being asked.
Yeah.
Quote unquote.
He's continued to stand up for his. I don't want to say beliefs necessarily, but I guess that's part of it.
Yeah.
It's an arbitrary belief, but he's still chosen to do it.
Still standing up for whatever principle he's standing on.
And he gets home and he calls the 4 other Barretts, doesn't get anywhere, and then phones the 5th. And bear in mind that he's not spoken to this woman yet.
No.
This girl, sorry.
And never introduced himself.
Himself. He's just calling her out of the blue.
Yeah.
And this girl answers and he's like, "Are you Ellen Barrett?" And she's like, "Who are you? Is this
Danny?
Is this Danny?"
Yeah. Maybe Danny Arcangelo.
Maybe Danny Arcangelo. We'll never know.
Yeah.
And he says something like, No. And then she's like, "Are you a pervert?" And then she calls to her like dad or her mom. She's like, "Mom, there's a pervert on the phone."
Yeah. Yeah. The phone call does not end up.
It does not go well.
Yeah.
He rapidly tries to turn it around with you smiled at me and I saw you and he immediately just kind of latches onto the fact this is not what people do.
Yeah.
You don't just call up random people and hope that you can introduce themselves to you. So he hangs up.
Yeah. So we know Jerry's future in telemarketing is done.
Not so great at the cold calls. No.
Yeah. Yeah. It was not great, but the kind of final resolve after this is he kind of says out loud.
He's still energized though.
Yeah, he says out loud like, "My name is Jerry Renault, and I will not sell these chocolates."
And,
right?
And there's
affirming
a note
it to
that
himself.
Like his voice sounded strong and brave, kind of. So that even the important lesson is that like even when a girl rejects you and calls you a pervert, don't give up on other things.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? Do give up on the girl though.
Yeah.
Chapter 27, we're introduced to the character of Frankie Rollo.
Yeah.
Who I believe is a brand new student at the school. What are they called again?
No, he's a junior
or whatever. Like what comes before junior? Is there something?
So there's
junior?
Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. But
I thought he was a freshman.
No, he's a junior. Like he's just a guy they kind of explain he's a little bit like doesn't give a care about anything. Like he's just a bit of a wild card.
Yeah.
And so he's in front of the vigils.
They bring him in for an assignment,
but he's the kind of guy who he doesn't care one way or the other.
So he's not standing at attention. They're like, "State your name," and he's like, "Come on, guys, you know my name."
Yeah.
You're supposed to state your name.
He's not buying into the decorum and the protocol.
Yeah, exactly. He's not taking
secret
any of it
society.
seriously.
Yeah.
And given the way that the things with the vigils have gone so far, Rollo is kind of the kid that snaps the camel's back.
A little bit.
Yeah. And we have, like, as much as Archie is trying to sort of get control of the situation, Carter is like, fuck this.
Yeah.
And just comes up.
Carter, who's his problem solving is through violence.
Fists. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he leaps into action.
Punches him in the face, punches him in the stomach, and is like, get this guy out of here.
Yeah.
And so they drag him out, they drop him in the
they can, like,
gym where they can hear him vomiting.
Vomiting in the gym.
Yeah.
And then Carter's like, keep it down or something like that. Like,
And there's this moment where Archie is feeling like he's lost control of the vigils, and he starts to
Carter has kind of asserted his authority.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Archie's in trouble.
Yeah.
Right?
And this is where Carter asks Obi to reveal something that he's found in the hall. And Obi pulls out this poster that he found on, like, the bulletin board that reads, "Screw the chocolates and screw the vigils."
Yeah.
And it's this sign that the whole of this, or at least a larger portion of the school, is beginning to kind of join this revolt.
Yeah. Kind of turn on the vigils.
Yeah. And the power that they hold over the school, which is scary for the vigils, and which has, Carter now concerned about, what Archie's been doing.
Yeah. But Archie works best under pressure.
He certainly does, yeah.
So he comes up with some plans here on the spot, or maybe he's already kind of been thinking about this, but he's devised, a plan where if they can make selling chocolates cool and get everybody on board, right? Really kind of like tie that energy together, and whether it's the whole school actually selling or just the belief that the school is selling, right? They make that mental shift, and then
that's the distinction that plays out over the next few chapters. We don't really get that sense in this chapter, right? In the chapter, it's just like, if we can make it seem cool.
Yeah.
And of course, when I'm reading it, it's like, well, I wonder how they're going to do that.
Yeah. Then Jerry is going to be, he's going to wish that he took the, was in the chocolate sales, took the chocolates and sold them, because he's going to be the one man out.
It's also, I think, supposed to make the rest of the student body feel separate from Jerry again.
Yeah,
because
there's an isolation piece there. Yeah. Archie, all his stuff is very psychological.
Very, yeah.
But I mean, he has lost a step, at least right here, because at the end of the meeting, Carter says to him,
"You're on probation.
You're on probation."
Yeah.
Basically, if the chocolate sale doesn't, go off, and part of the reason they're mad is because Archie, really without consulting the vigils, has agreed to put their name on the chocolate sale.
The whole vigils to it. Yeah.
So, the success or lack of success of the sale is going to directly impact this society. So Archie's now on probation, and if the chocolate sale doesn't go well, then it's going to be pretty bad for Archie.
And Archie he doesn't like the fact that he's been called out by. Yeah.
He's kind of humiliated and embarrassed by this. And
I don't think
he's the guy.
I don't think
Archie
Archie
shot
deals
caller,
with that
right?
very well.
Yeah.
Chapter 28. Jerry at a football game. Little football maneuver. There's a play. He tackles Carter, and then when he's getting back up and dusting himself off from that, he gets punched right in the kidney.
Yeah, and we don't know if it's someone on his own team or the other team, and he can't find who it was.
Yeah. But there's this sense in that moment that, or there's a sense that Jerry gets that more of the school is turning against him.
Yeah,
and there's no knowing who or what. Like, it used to be just a handful of people at the vigils, and now
he realizes that, I think, before the new kind of ask from the vigils, that people were kind of indifferent to whether he said yes or no. But now that he's going against the vigils, now it's a problem. And he's starting to get worried about his own kind of safety.
Well, I think at this point there's still a split, right? There are still some of the students who are like, we're not selling chocolates. And there are some of the students who are like, they're mad at Jerry for doing this, and so there's where the punches are coming from. But I think there is still some people who are supportive of him.
Well, I think it's more than that. I think this is directly related to vigil retribution, because I mean, you have the vandalism of his locker. After football practice, he goes to his locker. His poster's been vandalized, which, I mean, this poster is kind of the crux of the whole book, really. The
For
question
him,
on this
yeah.
poster.
I don't think
Well,
anyone
for us too, right? Like
for sure, yeah. But I mean,
the
I
whole
don't think
question is, do I dare disturb the universe? And the book kind of, yeah, we'll see. It kind of answers that
Yeah.
question, and it's maybe not the answer.
I don't think that the characters in the book know that the poster is relevant. I think the poster just happens to be something for them to vandalize.
But for Jerry, it's relevant,
Yeah.
and for us, it's relevant.
Yeah.
They vandalize it because it's really the only thing in his locker,
and
right?
his shoes. They vandalize
and then his shoes, which is like, you know, yeah. And Jerry even in his head is like, okay, yeah, one's kind of a bit of a prank, and then now you're actually causing like real property damage and that kind of thing. But yeah.
And then he's off to art class,
Yeah.
where he finds out that the teacher did not receive his watercolor
that he
landscape
handed in yesterday or something like that. Yeah.
and it was worth half of his grade.
Yeah.
And Jerry's pretty convinced that someone swiped it.
Yeah, why not? There's I mean, it's apparent now that there's a campaign against him to mess with him in multiple facets of his school life. Yeah.
And they're not insignificant ways. I mean, I guess art is maybe not the most important class in the world, but still, to steal something that's going to basically fail him in the class, it's pretty significant.
Yeah. The other thing here as well is that, as he's looking at his vandalized poster and he's gone through some of this campaign of retribution, he answers the question. So the question posed on the poster is, do I dare disturb the universe?
Yeah.
And Jerry looks at it and he says, yes, I do dare.
Yeah.
Right. Like I am going to disturb. So it kind of strengthens his resolve, this whole campaign. Like it kind of has the opposite effect, at least in this moment for Jerry, because he's resolved to see this through.
Yeah. And I think, when you go down a path like this, there is for some people that desire when people are pushing back to say like, no, you can't do this, to be like, no, fuck you.
Yeah.
I'm going to. You've just made me even more convinced that I need to, just to prove that I can.
Yeah, and it harkens us back to the first chapter of the book where he
just refuses to give up when he's being tossed around the field. Absolutely.
So we know he has this internal like determination and persistence, right? That is hard to quell. And so it comes out here again.
Mm-hmm. Chapter 29, we are back to Brian Cochran, who is totaling the chocolate sales, and now the numbers have gone up.
Oh man, business
substantially.
Is booming. Business is booming.
Yep, they've sold more than 15,000 boxes. But he's noticed that there's just some oddities going on.
Some irregularities in how the returns are coming in.
Yeah. A lot of them are coming in the hands of Vigil's members.
Yeah.
He does mention Carter specifically coming in with like huge amounts.
Yeah.
And then even like looking at the totals as they are, and then based on that telling him, give this person that many, this person.
Yeah.
And it's almost like he's trying to make sure that everybody sells exactly how much they're supposed to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And Brian starts getting the sense as well that these sales aren't being done by those people, that, it's either the Vigils themselves or people that the Vigils strong arm into doing it. They talk about how like a group of 4 of them went to some factory somewhere, I think.
Yeah. And like
sold 300
carloads have gone out to specific neighborhoods and they just swarm the neighborhood. And,
Yeah.
But Brian is getting applauded whenever he posts results in the hall.
And the students are, again, they're all sort of back on board the excitement as they see these numbers going up. Because there's the big sheet or whatever in the...
Yeah. And you got to think for some of them, right, who haven't maybe done the sales, seeing the numbers go up for them, they're like, hey, this is awesome. Like, I'm on board.
Exactly. I haven't needed to do anything.
Hey, I hit my quota.
For it. Yeah. Chapter 30, there's another chocolate roll call. We learned that Goober has stopped selling chocolates.
Yeah. Without telling anyone. It's like a silent protest.
It's a silent protest or a silent support.
Sign of support for Jerry. Yeah.
But he is a little bit nervous about, having to say he hasn't sold any. When they stop at Jerry again.
I mean, he's still saying no, but it's just not really a concern anymore for Brother Leon, right?
Yeah. And maybe this is where the question comes up that I mentioned earlier. But yeah, at this point, there's a student who's like, Brother Leon, can I ask a question?
And I think this is also Danny. If I can I don't know.
Maybe it is Danny.
I think Danny just is a real background troublemaker in this
Danny,
book.
Danny.
Archangelo, yeah.
Archangel.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a reference there.
Yeah.
And he's like, why isn't he selling the chocolates like everybody else?
Yeah. Well, the way he asked it, he's like, Brother Leon, can I get you to ask Jerry something? Right?
Was that what it was?
Yeah, like the way he phrases it, like he's not even asking Jerry directly. He's like, Brother Leon, can you ask Jerry, like, on behalf of the students, why he's refusing? Like it's this indirect. It's still this psychological isolation of Jerry, right? They won't even address him directly. It's, hey, let's kind of send this through Brother Leon. Let's make it a big show, but it's it's through the faculty. Right. We're not even talking to Jerry.
And Jerry says the same sort of thing. It's like, it's a free country.
Yeah.
It's optional, blah, blah, blah. But that delays the class long enough for the bell to ring.
Well, but Jerry also senses that his answers there's no longer a difference. He senses hostility now from his classmates, right? They're a little upset, especially because the sales are going so well and he's not pulling his weight. Yeah. So there's this now anger of like, hey, we're all involved with this. We're all on board. Like,
even though they're not.
Yeah. Well, some of them
probably are, but not all of them.
Yeah.
But when the bell rings and Goob does not have to, pardon me.
Yeah.
Goob doesn't have to answer his chocolates. But when he leaves the class and goes out and passes by where the totals are, he actually sees that his own total, which has only been, is 27 chocolates is all he's sold so far. And they see, which is not bad. He sees them updating his total to 50.
50, yeah.
And
he doesn't even realize because it's his real name, like Roland,
that's right. It's like, who is that?
Goubert,
oh, that's right. That's me. It's the Goob.
Yeah.
And he his first instinct is to sort of like step forward and correct it, but then he realizes that like that's not a good idea.
Yeah, he can't do that in this.
He can't do that.
Yeah,
and he realizes that his attempt at solidarity has been defeated.
Yeah,
which is, I think, kind of sad.
Yeah. Well, and he ends up crying on his way back to his locker, and he doesn't really know why. But there's a sadness.
But that's
there,
it. It's that he was trying to support, this guy who's standing out there on his own.
Yeah. And
he couldn't.
Yeah.
And even like, it's so weird that like the way that he didn't change his behavior at all.
Yeah.
But when they applied those numbers to him, in spite of him not, it just undermined his attempt in a way that he couldn't
really deal with,
couldn't retaliate to. Yeah. Right. Next chapter, 31. I think Jerry's on his way home.
This is where our Emil Janza pops out again. Yeah.
And it's like, where you going, Jerry? What you doing?
So he's heading back to school.
That's right. Yeah.
Because he had a bad practice and the coach is like, hit the showers early, bud. And on top of that, like, so he didn't complete any passes. And it's just on his walk back that he realizes they're dropping them on purpose.
Right.
Yeah. So he's kind of like, oh man, I'm having a rough day. And then he kind of like clues in. Nobody's looking out for me. They're dropping them on purpose.
Yes.
Right. And then he runs into Emil Janza. Yeah. And Emil is, he's referred to as like a beast and an animal and, like essentially a bit of a kind of terror. And so he's been unleashed on Jerry.
Yeah.
And he kind of confronts him and is, why are you in such a hurry, kid? Right. Like just
but he's
the classic bully voice. Right.
Yeah. And he's just poking at him because he doesn't want to start a fight.
No.
His
wants
approach
Jerry to start
is to try to get the other guy to start the fight. So his defense, no matter how, rough you might treat him, his defense can be, he started it.
Yeah. The classic bully method, I guess.
And so what he lands on is starting to call him a fairy.
Yeah.
You a fairy?
You a queer?
You queer?
Which is, you in this time,
especially at this time. Yeah, exactly.
You didn't want to be called
and that. At a Catholic school.
At a Catholic school.
At a Catholic all boys school.
All boys Catholic school.
And that's something that gets brought up in the taunts too. Like, wow, you must be getting off with all this young meat to rub
boys around. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now Jerry doesn't like lash out and actually hit Janza, which is what he's trying to kind of go for. But he does eventually kind of snap a little bit and he calls him a son of a bitch.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of the trigger.
Wow, how dare you?
Yeah. And so Janza doesn't retaliate with violence. Instead, he's
No,
laughing.
but his friends do.
Yeah, he just starts laughing, and Jerry's like, "Oh, what is this?" And all of a sudden, he gets bum rushed by
There's like 6 dudes
some like
that come out of the
wild, like like latchkey kids that like pop out of the bushes. I mean, they're not from the school, right? There's like these unknown, like feral children that pop out of the bushes and just swarm Jerry.
Well, I thought my take was that they could have been from the school, but because they came from behind him, he may not have had a good.
Emil does explain later on that they're.
Oh, that's right. He does do
they're
that.
just kids
You are
from
correct.
his neighborhood.
God
But
damn.
yeah, so these like feral kids that Emil has hired somehow or like looped into this little.
He said something like they'll do anything for a quarter. I think.
Do
right?
anything. Yeah. So yeah, he gets kind of swarmed. He's just getting pummeled, right? And he's trying to protect himself and just kind of take the beating. But yeah, he's just he's got no defense here. They beat him, and then he starts throwing up.
He starts throwing up,
and then the kids are like, "Oh, that's too gross. We're out of here.
Let's get out of here. Let's just spend our quarter somewhere."
Yeah, I mean, save from one kid who gives him another like real good kick to the back or something, and then he just passes right out. Yeah.
Chapter 32, sometime later, he comes to again.
He's in the comfortable darkness and kind of comes to.
Manages to get himself to the washroom at school to kind of clean himself up.
Which is like just crazy that he's like, he just walks to the shower. Like, I mean, like he should probably be in a hospital, but he gets himself to the shower.
But then, like, at this point, I don't know if I was in Jerry's position. I don't know who I would turn to for help.
Yeah.
The brothers at the school, they're out to get you.
Yeah, they already seem like they're part of it, right?
Yep.
Certainly Brother Leon, who is the acting headmaster.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, he cleans himself up. He manages to, get home. He pops his collar to sort of like hide his face. He doesn't want
sees on the news with criminals.
With criminals,
which is another little weird question. He asks himself, like, why is it when you're the victim, you have to behave like a criminal?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But that's the thing. He doesn't want to be observed. He doesn't want anyone to see what he's gone through there.
Yeah. And he does he does leave school a bit early, so he kind of catches a break that he's not on like a bus that has school kids and that kind of thing, right? So he makes it home a little bit incognito.
When he gets home, he's grateful that his dad is on the late shift because he doesn't want his dad seeing him like this.
Well, and he's also has like visible wounds on his face.
Oh yeah, he's been
scratched his cheek, jabbed his eye. Like his face is beat up as well. Like it's not just
bruising,
lower body
whatever,
or upper body stuff. Like his face is visibly beat up.
He tries to sleep for a bit, but then the phone rings.
Yeah,
and he gets up to answer it, and there's like nobody there except maybe a faint.
A chuckling, yeah. And then there's some sounds outside in the street.
Yeah, later when he's trying to sleep again, there's like these taunting,
he hears,
"What are you doing, Jerry?
Hey, Jerry,
come out, Jerry!"
Like from outside his building.
Yeah,
and so much so that like the custodian of the building comes out with a flashlight and is like, "What is going on out here, kids? Like,
we'll see you later, Jerry.
Yeah, bye, Jerry. And they throw some stuff at the building too. I think
I think it's the throwing something that really brings the custodian out.
Yeah. So so the campaign of taunting still continues even after he's been really beat up.
Oh yeah.
But that's gonna get flipped on its head.
Chapter 33, Janza and Archie are having a little chat. Archie gives Janza kind of shit for bringing in the other kids.
Yeah, because it was more than what they were looking for, right?
Yeah.
And Archie's very calculated in all of his steps. So if someone's not doing exactly what he wants, it's not cool.
But it's only a very little bit of...
It's a minor annoyance.
For the most part, he's pretty happy with the way it went. He used the fairy thing that he had asked him to. And in this conversation, I thought this was interesting. Emil brings up the photo and is like, so hey, about that photo.
Yeah.
And Archie's like, well, what if there isn't one?
Yeah.
What if there never was one? What if, think about it. Like,
what if it was dim in there?
What if it was dim?
What if
there was no film? There's no flash. Think about it, man. And in a way, this almost seems to give Emil more respect for Archie, which I wasn't really expecting. But isn't super surprising.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that Archie plays here is that he says, so after admonishing him for how he carried out this plan, he says, like, hey, Emil, you're a good guy. We need men like you
Right.
in the cause right now. Right. So like he also gives Emil this sense of purpose and importance within the vigil world.
That's true.
Which, he really soaks up, right? He's beaming with pride. And, and so the fact that Archie was able to imply that there might not be a picture, but still like, because he was always worried about how Jansa would react if he found out there wasn't really this leverage that he's been using over him. But he kind of plays that off. And, Jansa's just like full of pride and super happy. And Archie leaves. And then at the very end, he goes, wait a minute. That Archie's kind of a bit of a bastard, for doing that to me. But you get the sense that
a certain amount of respect.
Yeah, that there is that respect there, and that it's not going to really be a problem for Archie.
Yes,
he's gotten out of this as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Chapter 34, Jerry's heading back to school, and he notices how invisible he's become.
Yeah, we get the flip side. So before it was like this campaign of terror almost, of like, what's going to happen? Who's going to pop out of the woodwork? What's going to get wrecked? How am I going to,
There is still elements of that.
That's been happening, but he gets on the bus. Nobody looks at it, right? Yeah. It's like, it's just this opposite. Now he's invisible. The freeze is on, as they say.
Exactly.
They're freezing him out. Nobody's looking at him, or they're looking right through him like he's not even there. People that would normally like say hello or, just not talking to him or leaving right away. And
there's one kid he mentioned that like, no matter what you said to him, he would always
he'd give you the same energy back.
Nothing. He gets to his locker. Now someone has completely emptied it out. The poster's
it's all
gone.
Cleaned up.
Everything's gone. Yeah. Again, it's like he's a non-entity.
That's right.
But then he's about to go down the stairs, and
well, here's the thing for me is that it's so after the morning, he has lunch, right? He's all alone, whatever. And he starts to get comfortable in his invisibility.
Oh, I see.
Right. And he's kind of like, I think if you're at the school, you kind of see Jerry start to maybe walk a little more comfortably down the hallways and not looking around. And it's at that moment where he's kind of like starting to embrace this invisibility, because that's kind of what he wanted earlier,
right?
A little bit. As soon as he kind of embraces that and starts feeling comfortable, then he gets like almost pushed down the stairs.
Yeah,
right. Like then the violence kind of kicks back in, and it's really only, as far as certainly chronologically, it's only after he starts to get comfortable and embrace.
That's a good point.
This freeze that then, now there's a little bit more physical interaction that happens. So I thought that was a bit of an interesting take, because like the psychological aspect of this campaign, I mean, for just school kids, right? Like it's pretty brilliant. Like not to say that it should be done, but like just the steps and the thought behind this from Archie to like make this entire campaign and to switch back and forth from like physical violence to now there's nobody that will look at you back and forth, and like
you just don't know what the next thing is going to be.
Yeah, like it's brilliant.
Yeah,
really. But yeah, I mean, not very nice.
No.
Certainly
kind of mean, you guys.
Yeah. Certainly very well thought out. And like to adapt to that and to notice, oh, hey, he's feeling a little too comfortable, let's push him down the stairs. Like, I mean, it's quite an interesting,
quite well orchestrated. Yeah. And then we have Brian Cochran reporting to Brother Leon that the chocolate sales are finished.
Yeah.
Except for the outstanding 50 boxes.
Exactly 50. Which again is troubling to Brian a little bit. And also that so much like money has come in, right? Like 98%.
Yeah, again, there's almost always some delayed because they borrowed it or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or spoilage of chocolates.
Or something gets lost. And the fact that it's like perfect.
Yeah.
Which makes it seem like maybe some of them weren't even sold. Like maybe there's money that came in that was not exchanged.
These guys could have been holding up
Yep.
cigarette shops for all we know.
Exactly.
Just to get the money in. Yeah.
And then we learn that Archie is planning an assembly.
A special assembly
to deal with those final 50 chocolates.
That's right.
That'll be at the athletic field the next night.
And he's going to get Jerry there
He's going to get Jerry there somehow. It's only for the students, not for the faculty.
Yeah. Which is already, that's kind of troubling, right?
Yep. And yeah, it's to give Jerry a chance to deal with the chocolates, and it's apparently by a raffle.
Yeah.
We don't know what that means at this point in time, but
I mean, you got 50 boxes of chocolates to
given
raffle off, but
given everything else that has happened so far, there is a certain ominous nature to it.
well, especially the fact that there's not going to be any faculty present, right?
Yeah, that can't be good.
It's just the Archie show to do whatever he wants.
Exactly.
That's not the ideal situation to be walking into.
Yeah. Chapter 35, we start with the phone conversation between Archie and Jerry, where Archie is attempting to convince Jerry to come.
Which, I mean, this is a big thing, right? If he doesn't pull this off, if he doesn't get Jerry
doesn't really work.
to this assembly, then the whole thing falls apart. So, he lays it on thick, saying, "Hey, you can get back at Janza, right? Yeah. Like you can exact your revenge. Just really laying into all the opportunity to kind of give Jerry an outlet for whatever kind of rage and frustration that he's been feeling around this."
And I believe it's sold to him as a boxing match. It's going to be a fight.
Yep.
And you have a chance to sort of stand up to this guy who beat the crap out of you the other day. And Archie, in his smooth talking abilities, manages to get Jerry to agree to it.
Yeah. And then to convince Janza, not quite such a difficult conversation. Was pretty easy on the other side. All he said was, which he probably didn't even have to, but he said, people are saying you're a bit of a, you had to use extra kids just to beat up Jerry. So, give you a chance to go out of bounds.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I mean, he probably would have been in no matter what, but yeah.
And then we're there at the night of the match.
Mm-hmm.
And again, at this point, this is so just like giving us enough information.
Yeah. We learned that there's
special rules.
Yeah. Something different in terms of how this fight is going to go down.
And Jerry doesn't like it.
Yeah.
But also
he can't say
he's
no.
There
he's
now.
in front of everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. He can't back out.
Because they ask each of them, and he asked Janza first.
Yep.
Do you accept these rules? Right. And we don't know what the rules are yet, but and Janza's like, yeah, I'll beat him however you want me to beat him. Right. And then Jerry is left, to go, oh, I guess I got to say yes. Right. I'm here. he probably has the gloves on.
Yeah.
Already,
yeah. I think they said that they're both shirtless with their gloves on and, all ready to go. And they've brought out an old boxing ring.
Yeah.
And set it up on the field.
Yeah. And the raffle tickets are selling like hotcake, or at like nudie pictures. I think they say is selling hotter than nudie pictures.
And then in chapter 36, we learn what the details of the raffle are, which is that when you buy a ticket, you get to choose who throws a punch, and the kind of punch and to where, And if your blow is the one that makes the opponent
either
drop and basically
KO,
if it ends the fight,
or he throws in the towel after that.
If your blow wins the fight, you win the chocolates.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, there's a perverse
brilliance to
it, given everything that's preceded this.
Yeah, I mean, from what we know about Archie and his ability to kind of like psychologically manipulate people and use people's baser natures kind of against them or for his own benefit, this I think really kind of comes together. And there's a conversation here between Carter and Archie where Carter is kind of like how did you do it? Like he almost doesn't understand like what's happened, and Archie explains to him that I know about people, and people are greedy and cruel. So if I give them the opportunity, right, to be cruel through this raffle of, dictating what punch goes where, and give them the opportunity to win chocolates. And I think there's $100 or something on the line. Like there's cash and chocolates.
There's enough to appeal to both the greedy and the cruel.
And that like it's the perfect mix. And Carter's kind of disgusted by this worldview, but he also starts questioning like, is he right? Is that what the world is? And so it's interesting that Archie kind of has this figured out. Carter's like, I don't like that, but is that how the world works? And it's, it kicks off this other kind of question within the book about, what is out there in the world and in the universe that we might be disturbing.
And then Obi.
Oh yeah.
Obi's got a sneaky little plan here, which it caught me by surprise.
This is good.
I really like this.
I gave it up for Obi on this one.
Yeah, Obi brings out the black box.
Which has never really been seen outside of the vigil.
Yeah.
But it's rumored, and people don't even believe it.
Point out that like everybody knows about it. So like,
people have heard about it.
People have heard about it,
but it's mentioned that some people don't even believe it's real, right?
Guess,
like it's this mythological artifact, really,
right?
But Obi brings it out.
But just a reminder that, the black box is there for any of the assignments that Archie hands out. And anytime there's an assignment, he has to draw a marble from the box. I think there's six total marbles?
6 marbles.
5 white.
And 1 black.
1 black.
If he pulls the black
draws a black, he has to do the assignment instead.
Yeah.
And it's intended to be a balancing thing so that no assignment is ever
so bad or too cruel.
Because there's always a chance he might have to do it.
Yeah. But we know Archie has never
drawn
the black.
Right.
And we don't know how long he's been the assigner, but I mean, if he's a senior, maybe a couple years, right?
Yeah.
At least a year.
And Obi, when they decide to sort of crank up the odds by saying he's got to draw
for each fighter.
Twice. Yeah. 1 for each fighter. And so, I didn't know how this was going to go.
Yeah, me too.
I was on the edge of my seat at this point, honestly.
I honestly thought he was going to pick a black one, and the book was going to go in a complete different direction.
Yeah. But he draws the first one.
Well, the thing is, so they're trying to like really embarrass Archie and play this out, but Archie, like, he's not the guy who takes this embarrassment or humiliation. So he goes quick. He just picks a white one, boom, like right away before they even have a chance to notice what's going on. And then before they can say anything, he picks another one, like boom, another white marble. So he's got 2 white marbles.
But the second one, he does do it a bit theatrical. Like he holds it in his hand and then does the reveal to everybody. Yeah. And it's another white one.
But it's happened so quick. I mean, they were thinking this is going to play out. It's going to be a little bit of a ceremony. Something could go wrong. And like Archie just boom, within like 20 seconds, he's kind of defeated them.
Yeah.
Which also I think is, I wasn't expecting that either. I was kind of like, well, something's got to happen here. They went to all this trouble, but it kind of turns out to be a bit of a red herring kind of misdirect because nothing really happens. And it almost like secures Archie's legend and infamy a little bit more, the fact that he kind of gets through this test, especially where there's greater odds of him picking the black marble.
Yeah.
And also in front of the whole school who've never seen this before.
Yeah.
And some didn't believe it existed. It's now like legend, right? And Archie is a bigger legend for having gone through this in front of everyone. So it kind of backfires on them. But yeah, an interesting gambit by Obi and Carter. Carter was also involved.
Exactly. Yeah.
They planned it together. Yeah. Because they both don't like Archie.
I'll let you continue. I stopped taking notes here because I just wanted to finish the book.
So he makes it through, which means that he will not be switching spots with any of the fighters.
Yeah.
So chapter 37, the fight begins, and we get to see kind of how this raffle ticket system works. So Carter is basically picking a ticket out, and then he reads this out loud. So it's, from whoever, Johnny Demers, right hook to the cheek or whatever it is, right? He starts reading these out.
And Jerry gets to throw the first punch.
Yeah. It turns out that somebody wrote Jerry's name in, and he throws, but he kind of miffs it a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's a
sort of a glancing
blow. And then the next blow was for Janza, who does not waste any time and rocks Jerry with an uppercut. But Jerry doesn't go down, stays on his feet, kind of clears his head. The other thing we find out here is that part of these rules, they're not allowed to defend themselves.
Yes, exactly.
Right. So it's shot for shot basically, and they gotta kind of take it. And then it is a bunch of stuff for Janza in a row. And then Jerry gets another blow or another hit that he gets, and he kind of tees one up into Janza's face and shocks Janza a little bit. Right? He's kind of like, oh, he stumbles back a little bit and is like, kind of like, oh man, that was.
There's a moment there that you feel like the fight could go either way.
Yeah, but boys being boys, somebody's thrown in a little bit of illegal punch. So
yeah, and I think it comes up that like they never said that you couldn't.
Yeah, and I think that's Carter blames himself for this a little bit because he's a boxer and he just he doesn't expect anyone to do this, and he doesn't, he's just been reading them out and hasn't really been checking them, and he doesn't stop. So he reads out, Janza punched,
To the
Jerry
groin.
to the groin.
Yeah. And there's like a moment where he, like, as he's read it out,
He's
that,
kind of like,
I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Because when the punch gets thrown, Jerry instinctively,
Yeah.
and maybe because he knows that it's an illegal blow,
Yeah.
he like instinctively blocks
kind
it.
of defends himself, which the crowd then goes wild because they're not allowed to defend themselves. And they kind of start calling out for blood. And then Janza's like, well, if he's breaking the rules, why should I listen to the rules? And he just goes off.
Pummels him.
Janza just jumps onto Jerry, is just punching him all over. Now Jerry is, he's defending himself. He gets into kind of like a tuck position, kind of turtles a bit, and he's just taking the blows. And he starts thinking like, wait a minute here. Like, I got a good shot in on this guy. Maybe I just kind of wait for my opportunity here. Like, he might get tired. And so he's kind of just, taking the blows. He's covering his head. He's protecting himself, and he's just kind of letting the blows rain down on him and just waiting for his opportunity. And then we flash back to Janza, who's kind of going, wait a minute, like, I'm not having much effect here. I need to step back and really line up a powerful shot here and, take Jerry out. And that's when Jerry goes, he's paused, and he comes out and he lands a massive blow to the chest. And Janza is wobbling back on his feet, barely standing up. And at this point, this is where Jerry is kind of like looking at the crowd, who are, some are cheering, most are booing. And he starts like wondering to himself, like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this for these people?
Yeah.
And he's having this moment of kind of introspection on the stage. But meanwhile, Janza's recovered himself, and he comes back, and now Jerry's no longer defending himself. He's kind of looking at the crowd, and he gets just destroyed by Janza. Potentially broken jaw, all sorts of potential internal injuries here. He goes down hard, lights out, essentially, like done. And it's not just Jerry whose lights go out. The entire stadium goes lights out. So we're in darkness.
Yeah.
There's a bit of panic in the stadium. Before the lights go out, though, OBC's brother Leon kind of in a hill.
Yeah, off on the side. Secretively watching.
Yeah, watching kind of over the stadium, and he sees his face in the moonlight or something like that. And then he kind of turns away as the lights to the whole stadium go out. And Archie, being the only one who is in control of anything, people are panicking and running around. And he's going, geez, these idiots. Why am I the only one who's going to go to the control room and check things out and see why the power is out? And so he makes his way, stumbling through the crowd that's panicking, to the control room, opens the door, the lights come back on, and Brother Jacques is in there saying, hey, I've been waiting for you, and you're really the villain here, aren't you, Archie?
Yeah.
Basically, like, trying to catch him red-handed in this debacle that's been going on. Chapter 38, we have the Goob coming to the rescue,
Goob has sort of run up to Jerry. Jerry's on the mat or whatever.
Yeah.
And the Goob is cradling him and sort of trying to say, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, you're going to be all right, Jerry.
And there is a section here I wanted to read.
Okay.
And this
is this Jerry's internal?
This is Jerry's
monologue?
internal,
Okay.
and it does follow with the Goob saying, it'll be all right, Jerry. No, it won't. He recognized Goober's voice, and it was important to share the discovery with Goober. He had to tell Goober to play ball, to play football, to run, to make the team, to sell the chocolates, to sell whatever they wanted you to sell, to do whatever they wanted you to do. He tried to voice the words, but there was something wrong with his mouth, his teeth, his face. But he went ahead anyway, telling Goober what he needed to know. They tell you to do your thing, but they don't mean it. They don't want you to do your thing, not unless it happens to be their thing, too. It's a laugh, Goober, a fake. Don't disturb the universe, Goober, no matter what the posters say.
Yeah. Which, as we mentioned before, the book does answer the question on the poster, do I dare disturb the universe? And the answer is a pretty firm no from Jerry, which for me,
from Jerry's perspective, I get it.
I do get it. But at the same time, especially given the first chapter where he's taking this punishment and still, persevering in despite it. He's already had a beating from Janza and his latchkey kids, and here he's gotten his world rocked again, but he still survived. He's still come through it. So for me, it's a bit of not a satisfactory answer, really, in terms of Jerry's takeaway from that, because the determination that we saw earlier in the book from him through all of these, kind of trials that he's been through, he's persisted, right? And here is yet again just really another physical altercation, right? Like he just got beat up again, right? So they still really haven't broken his spirit potentially, but the fact that he gave up just because he's taken another beating, to me, I don't know, it feels anticlimactic. It feels a little different from where I thought the book was heading. I thought there would be a little bit more triumph in terms
Absolutely.
of like, if you disturb the universe, like, it may not be great, but there may be something there for you as some type of reward. So for me, because that little internal monologue answered the question, I don't know, it felt a little disappointing to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I what you talked about as far as like, the fact that like he'd been beat up before, he'd been thrown out by football, he had to fight with.
He's a pretty tough little kid.
He's a tough little kid.
Yeah.
But we all have that breaking point. We all have that point where like we can only be pummeled so long, physically, emotionally, psychologically, before we go, fine, universe, you fucking win. I'm not going to disturb you anymore.
Yeah.
And that's a bummer.
Yeah.
It's a bummer to be reminded of that.
Yeah.
Especially at an age, and again, because this is a young adult novel, where I felt like the message should have been, like, it should have been that, yes, you can disturb the universe and should.
Yeah.
The lesson very much seems to be maybe not.
It feels a little soul crushing, especially.
It really does.
Especially given the genre, as you mentioned. It's a young adult novel.
Yeah.
Like these are children who are future dreamers and doers and, people that could potentially change the world. And the message is don't even try. Don't dare. And I mean, for me, that was a little tough to swallow, but I get it, that
I guess maybe if you're trying to find a positive message, it would be sure you're strong enough to take it
and that it's worth it.
And it's worth it before you decide to disturb the universe.
Yeah.
Don't disturb the universe just over chocolates. Maybe.
Just over chocolates.
But I don't know. It was pretty defeating.
So also the Goob here, while he's cradling Jerry, he finds Obi in the crowd, or Obi, they lock eyes, and he says, "Hey, get a doctor." And Obi's kind of like, "Yeah." So there's an ambulance that's called. The ambulance comes, takes Jerry away, and we hear that he's got some pretty severe injuries, but he'll likely be okay.
Yeah.
And then we flash back to Brother Jacques. So he's got Archie kind of cornered here and is ready to really lay into him about, like, you've organized this whole thing and like, students are injured and it's like, this is bad. But Brother Leon shows up, right? Brother Leon, who's had his kind of proverbial bacon saved by the chocolate sale success that is, Archie's doing, comes in and gives a little bit of it wasn't your best judgment, Archie, but, boys will be boys.
Exactly.
And, what can we do, Brother Jacques? And so Brother Jacques kind of gets a little frustrated and leaves. And, Brother Leon says, good work. Good work to Archie. And he's out of trouble as well. I mean, really, and we see, I think, a little bit later on that Archie does say something about, there's a reason he tipped Brother Jacques off, or Brother Leon off to what was going on, because should anything happen, because Carter fucked it up with how he read the stuff, that Brother Leon was really their protection, because, he had kind of lost that power to Archie in a few ways along the way by needing the help from the Vigils. And
exactly. They were
making
completely hitched to each other.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the fact that the Vigils managed to get those sales done meant that Leon did owe them.
Yeah.
Right. Or at least, that's the bet that Archie made, that he would feel that way. And it definitely seems to have panned out that way.
Right. Yeah.
And then chapter 39 is basically just sort of, it's very much an echo of chapter 2, where you have Archie and Obi, and they're sitting on the bleachers now, sort of in the darkness. This is where they were sitting in chapter 2 when they first spotted Jerry and decided to give him the
and I believe it's referenced.
It is,
that, hey,
exactly.
Like Archie or Obi, one of them thinks that hey, this is where we first saw that Renault kid anyway. Yeah.
Just in case you weren't paying attention.
That's right.
The book.
Now, chocolates do come up again here. Because Archie, we know he's got a sweet tooth.
That's right.
I mean, so he's
like, hey, where are those chocolates?
Any of those 50 boxes. And the 50 boxes had been kind of stacked in a pyramid as well, like kind of as part of this pageantry, which I guess in the darkness, the kids kind of bum rush the chocolates and they're not really there anymore. And so Archie's like, hey, any of those chocolates around? And Obi's like, no, they got them all. And you got any Hershey's? No, I don't have any Hershey's. And then that's pretty much it. They kind of sit there in the dark quietly for a bit and then just leave. And that's the book.
That's the book.
We answered this big question of, do I dare disturb the universe? The answer was no. And then the guy who like caused everyone all this grief just kind of walks away in the dark and goes home. Not in trouble. No, nothing. Yeah. So, I mean,
I'm fucking depressed, man.
From a realism perspective, yeah, I mean, it really ties into the real world. From a inspiring the youth perspective, I mean, not exactly the message.
Realism from reality, dude.
Right? Like some of this stuff that we read, I mean, there should be a little bit of, some kind of triumph there, even if it's not in real life in a book.
At this point, I am very, very curious about what Beyond the Chocolate War is like.
Yeah.
Whether or not like part of its reason for being might be that the author was like, maybe we should inspire some hope in people this time. I don't know. I haven't bothered Googling it to learn anything about it, but I am definitely thinking about maybe giving it a read at some point.
Yeah. I'm curious. I mean, like, because realistically, I mean, Jerry's carted off in an ambulance. He's probably not going to be at school for a while. He's going to recover. I mean, we know he's not dying. So what happens? Like, does he change his tune? Does his resolve strengthen? Does his determination and persistence come back? Like, this could be something that inspires him to become an entrepreneur or a political leader. Like, this is the kind of stuff that could really forge character. So yeah, is what does happen after the Chocolate War is an interesting question. Cause I mean, it's like a turning point. I mean, at the time, laying there bloodied, beaten, barely woken out of a, self-inflicted Janza coma. It's easy to say, no, I shouldn't have disturbed the universe, but maybe that changes after he gives it some thought.
Yeah. Another thing that I did think was interesting is that in spite of how central these chocolates were to the whole story, we got very little details about what these chocolates were like.
Yeah.
Like it's the concept of them that was important.
It could have been anything.
They could have been anything.
I for sure pictured what I sold as a kid.
Yeah.
I pictured a box of chocolate almonds. I mean, there was one scene where as Archie is talking, I think to Jerry.
Yes. When he's asking about why he's not.
He's popping. It says he's popping the chocolates in his mouth, right? So we know they're kind of.
They're very good, Jerry.
Yeah. So we know they're kind of like individual ones. So it harkens me back to like the box of chocolate almonds where you had, for what it was like $2 or $3. When I was a kid.
Yeah, it's true.
It's like 15 to 20 chocolate almonds. Like maybe not the best deal, but
I was picturing something more like the pot of gold. Kind of chocolates, maybe not like as big a box, like a smaller box, but that sort of individual chocolate kind of thing. But yeah, just really interesting that no time was spent in describing the nature of the chocolates themselves.
Yeah. I mean, really, our biggest description was the deal that Leon got.
That they're Mother's Day
chocolates, right? So, like, I mean, they could have even been
stale,
in like a heart-shaped box.
They could have been. That's true.
Like, who knows?
For the love of the school.
Yeah, that's right. All they had to do was take the mother ribbon off, and they're good to go.
Exactly.
Right? So,
so that was The Chocolate War, a book I've been waiting a very long time to read. So
me too. I mean, it's a good book.
Yeah,
but I will say that. I mean, I thought it would be a little more inspiring at the
end. Yeah. I'm kind of glad that I have time to reflect on it before we come back and give our final thoughts.
Yeah. And I think it may be good to just kind of at least get a bit of a synopsis of what After the Chocolate War is like, just to see where that goes, because this story does curtail very quickly, like it's just boom. What happens that night? So Archie and Obi are, just kind of sitting there. They go home. They're not really in trouble or anything. Jerry's off in the ambulance. He's hurt, but he's going to survive. And that's all we know. It just ends right there.
Yeah.
And well, like, what fallout is there? Because I don't think this kind of thing happens and the parents don't find out about it, right? Or, the more of the external world rather than just the school, right? This is the kind of thing that is going to make waves in the community potentially, right? So so far we've been focused on the school, on Trinity, the faculty versus the student body. After the chocolate war, is that going to then see some of the bigger impact in the world and potentially by extension, and what the disturbance in the universe has led to?
Beyond could be meaning, geographically larger than.
Well, and also the question was disturbing the universe, right? So we move from the school to the community to, right? Are we going to get
to the entire universe?
Yeah. So I'm curious to see what that holds. So that may be one just to at least get a few snippets from before we give our final thoughts.
And I think I might also try to sneak in viewing of the movie if I can find it.
Yeah.
Before we go do our live wrap up.
It's not super old, right? Early 2000s or something. I think they did.
I thought it was in the late 80s or something.
Late 80s? Like that. Okay, maybe.
Yeah.
I'll see. Check that movie out. I'm curious to see how because it seems like it would be a very interesting ensemble cast.
Yeah, and I think it's a very visual novel, so I think it would be pretty easy to adapt into a film.
Yeah,
which explains probably why they made it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious to see if they, for as Hollywood sometimes does.
If they
maybe change the ending a little bit to be more hopeful or something, or they bring in a little bit of the, the follow up to extend the kind of epilogue type stuff that you see a little bit in Hollywood films. So curious to see how that looks as well. So you heard it here first. We're going to try and do a live episode on February 16th.
That is pending Pete's very messy schedule.
Yeah, that's right.
But
the good news is that on the Sundays, potentially, especially if there's other games in between, and I go to enough of them that it's, and the season's drawing to an end here. I think March is kind of the end of the basketball season, at least for him being on two teams at the same time.
Right.
Which is,
why would you do that?
Well, I mean, he gets lots of time, right?
I guess that's true.
But so potentially February 16th.
Yeah.
3 p.m.
Usually 3 p.m. There will be, if you follow us on Facebook, which you should, because that's where we do our updates, we'll let you know. You
should also check it out on Patreon.
You should also check it out on Patreon, but Facebook is where we will post links to the lives as well as information about, change on dates on live episodes. But hopefully Sunday, February 16th. Maybe follow us on Podbean.
It's a good place to follow us.
It's a good place to follow us. It is the app also that you do need to use if you want to call in and chat with us. I think you also need to be using Podbean if you want to join the live chat. But I don't think you need to be on your phone. I think you can do the live chat through the web. Yeah. But you do have to be on your phone. At least you used to be. I'm pretty sure you have to be on your
headphones, I think.
Phone and headphones to call us.
But you might, if you use your headphones with your laptop, you might be able to do it as well. Potentially,
I don't think it's worked. It didn't.
Not
it
for
didn't. No, they may have changed it, but I don't think I've seen that in any of their emails. So, as far as I know, if you want to be able to call in, and we'd love it if you do.
We love talking to you.
You need to be using the app, and you need to be using a headset of some kind.
Yeah, we've had a few call-ins, which have been great. We've had a few interesting discussions, and the questions are great too. I mean, even if you don't really care about the book or this particular media, just general discussion on censorship in the arts.
Yep.
We're always ready to kind of hop in on that and just talking with you, especially if you got ideas about stuff that we may we haven't covered or that we could potentially cover. We're always looking to kind of see that stuff, right?
And I think too, it's worth pointing out briefly that as we record this, we are, I believe, 1 day away from Donald Trump being inaugurated as the next president of the United States again, which may may mean some tough things for literature and stuff in the
Certainly.
U.S.
Yeah.
We know that the right wing seems to have a bit of a love on for banning books in schools and that sort of thing. So if you're listening in the U.S. and you are aware of bannings going on, and there's a particular
Or
book,
challenges that are
or challenges,
happening,
whatever, and there's a particular book that's being put under the magnifying glass that you'd like us to talk about, please let us know. It's not. When we started this podcast, the intention wasn't necessarily for it to be a place that you could turn to get access to information about the books that have been banned. But if that's a resource that we can provide for people in a world where these books are being banned, then I would be, I think we're more than happy to do that.
For sure.
And we're always sort of looking for, the next book we're going to talk about, the
That's
next
right.
movie we're going to talk about, and certainly very happy to take advice from our audience. Otherwise, we're just going to, probably pick something that we've been meaning to read for a long time.
For sure. But yeah, I mean, the fact that we could potentially help someone, understand a book that's been banned or why it's been banned, or like you said, give them access to just the information about it that they might not be able to. Some of these things are very difficult to source. I mean, it's a little easier in Canada. But yeah, and especially depending on the county that you're in the state that you're in, or the country, if you're, anywhere in the world where some of the censorship is heavy-handed or state controlled, it may be very difficult and challenging to get access to a copy or even find out what it's about, right? So yeah, if we can provide that, that's great.
So yeah, reach out to us at banthingshappen@gmail.com. You can, of course, reach us through Facebook as well. We have a Patreon. All of our links can be found at blahblahblahmedia.com. That's blah spelled BLAH, and there's 3 of them, blahblahblahmedia.com. And there's also links to our merch store, Buy Me a Coffee.
And the merch is pretty cool. I
do think we're due for maybe a refresh on some things, maybe some new stuff. We'll see. Maybe we need a shirt that says, "Don't dare disturb the universe."
Don't dare disturb the universe.
Maybe, and a face
and then
that's
a little
just been
Jerry
pummeled.
Renault.
Yeah.
Quote by Jerry Renault.
I think that's it. Do you have any final thoughts before we sign off?
I mean, go read the book.
Go read the book.
Go live in this world for a little bit. It's interesting, especially if you've graduated from high school and have had some experience in the real world, to like go back and kind of live in that, questioning world where there's peer pressure and social pressure and all these different things, and to put yourself in the shoes of the kid who is on the outside looking in, right? And just feel that. If you take nothing else away from the book, just viscerally being back in that world and feeling that kind of craziness of high school and that kind of environment. There's a brilliance in the book around that in itself. But there's also, like we said, there's some very interesting questions and interesting answers to those questions within this book, whether you like them or not. And I think it definitely worth a read through for that.
And I'll say too, without getting into my deeper thoughts on the book, it's just incredibly well written.
Yeah,
really, 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 really strong author in Robert Cormier, and I think it's a compelling read. It's a big page turner, not too long. It's like 40 pages.
250. Yeah, I think. Yeah.
So go read it. I've been Todd Sullivan.
I'm Peter Hammond.
And until next time,
go read a fucking book,
whether it's this one or not.